The conference room fell silent the moment the security guard stepped toward the exhausted father carrying a faded lunchbox. Every employee watched as a cardboard box filled with family photos, a worn coffee mug, and a tiny handmade Father's Day card slid from his trembling hands onto the polished floor. Nobody spoke. Nobody defended him. After 12 years of loyal service, one cold accusation was enough to erase everything he had built. As he walked toward the parking lot beneath the gray skies of Chicago, Illinois, he stopped beside his aging pickup truck, stared at the little drawing his daughter had made for him, reached into his pocket, and made one calm phone call that would change every life inside that building forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness is never weakness and that good people deserve second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us why compassion still matters. Michael Carter had never imagined that life could collapse before lunchtime. At 42 years old, he had spent every day trying to be the kind of father his late wife would have been proud of. 5 years earlier, cancer had taken his wife, Rachel, leaving him to raise their 8-year-old daughter, Grace, alone. Since then, every morning began before sunrise. He packed lunches, braided Grace's hair after watching countless tutorial videos, helped with homework, worked overtime whenever possible, and still found enough energy to read bedtime stories every night. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't powerful. He was simply a father who believed that showing up every day mattered more than anything else. Michael worked as operations director at one of Chicago's fastest-growing logistics companies. Most employees respected him because he never acted superior. He remembered birthdays, helped warehouse workers lift heavy shipments, and quietly paid medical bills for an employee whose son needed surgery. Very few people knew he owned a significant percentage of the company through an investment made years before the business became successful. Michael had never cared about titles or ownership. He trusted the executive board to handle business while he focused on people. Unfortunately, not everyone appreciated kindness. A recently promoted executive named Brandon Pierce believed compassion was weakness. Ambitious and arrogant, Brandon wanted complete control of the company. He viewed Michael as an obstacle because employees admired him far more than they admired corporate leadership. Brandon began spreading subtle rumors that Michael was too emotionally attached to employees, too soft for modern business, and responsible for declining profits that were actually caused by Brandon's own reckless decisions. Over several weeks, carefully manipulated reports reached the board. Financial data was twisted. Emails were taken out of context. Honest mistakes became exaggerated accusations. Michael never realized a trap had been carefully built around him because he remained busy helping everyone else solve their problems instead of protecting himself. Everything collapsed during a surprise executive meeting. Without warning, Brandon presented fabricated evidence suggesting Michael had approved unauthorized expenses and violated company policy. Several nervous board members accepted the presentation without investigating. They feared investors would panic if the issue became public. Before Michael could fully explain the missing information, Brandon recommended immediate termination to protect the company's reputation. The decision happened within minutes. Security escorted Michael from his own office while coworkers watched in stunned silence. Some lowered their heads in shame. Others wanted to speak but feared losing their own jobs. Grace's handmade Father's Day card slipped from his belongings as he walked away. The colorful crayon letters read, "My daddy is my hero." Michael picked it up carefully. He didn't cry inside the building. He waited until he reached the empty parking lot. Looking at his daughter's smiling drawing reminded him why anger could never become stronger than love. Losing his job was devastating, but disappointing Grace hurt far more. Then he made the phone call. His voice remained calm. "Schedule an emergency board meeting immediately," he quietly said, "and fire every one of them." The assistant on the other end answered without hesitation because she knew something almost nobody else remembered. Michael Carter wasn't just another executive. He was the majority shareholder. Years earlier, when the struggling company desperately needed investors, Michael had quietly invested nearly everything he owned after believing in the founder's vision. As the founder retired because of illness, Michael inherited voting authority that remained untouched because he never wanted power. He trusted others to lead honestly. That trust had just been destroyed. Within 90 minutes, emergency notices reached every executive's email. The board members laughed at first. They stopped laughing when company attorneys arrived. Legal documents covered the conference table. Voting records were verified. Ownership percentages were confirmed. Brandon's confidence disappeared. The company's legal counsel calmly explained that the majority shareholder possessed full authority to dissolve the current executive board due to misconduct, negligence, and breach of fiduciary responsibility. Independent auditors had already begun reviewing financial records after Michael's earlier confidential request, made weeks before he suspected something was wrong. The investigation revealed manipulated reports, concealed executive bonuses, intimidation of employees, and deliberate misinformation presented to the board. Everything Brandon accused Michael of had actually been committed by Brandon himself. One by one, executives realized their careers were ending, not because Michael wanted revenge, because accountability had finally arrived. That evening, instead of celebrating, Michael drove directly to Grace's elementary school for the annual family reading night. He still wore the same wrinkled shirt from the terrible morning. Grace ran into his arms with the innocent excitement only children possess. She had no idea her father's career had nearly been destroyed. She simply smiled. For Michael, that smile mattered more than every business victory combined. The following week, news spread throughout the company that an entirely new leadership team had been appointed. Employees expected dramatic speeches and harsh punishments. Instead, Michael gathered everyone inside the warehouse. He thanked the janitors first, then the forklift operators, then receptionists, then drivers, finally, managers. He explained that companies never succeed because of executives sitting around expensive tables. They succeed because ordinary people perform extraordinary acts of dedication every single day. Fear would never again become the culture of the organization. Employees stood silently. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Several confessed they had wanted to defend Michael during the firing but feared losing health insurance, mortgages, and the ability to feed their families. Michael understood completely. He refused to shame them. Instead, he promised to build a workplace where doing the right thing would never cost someone their livelihood. Over the next year, remarkable changes transformed the company. Employee assistance programs expanded. Parents received flexible schedules. Mental health counseling became available. Scholarships were created for workers' children. Profit sharing rewarded everyone instead of only executives. Customer satisfaction reached record levels because happy employees naturally served people better. Business magazines praised the company's incredible turnaround, but journalists misunderstood the real reason behind its success. They credited new financial strategies and innovative leadership models. The truth was much simpler. Kindness had become company policy. Meanwhile, Brandon struggled to rebuild his career. Every interview reminded him that integrity cannot be replaced with ambition. Months later, after reflecting on everything he had lost, he wrote Michael a handwritten letter, accepting responsibility for his actions and apologizing sincerely. Many expected Michael to ignore it. Instead, he accepted the apology. Forgiveness didn't erase consequences, but it prevented bitterness from controlling his future. Grace eventually asked her father why he didn't hate the people who hurt him. Michael smiled gently and explained that carrying hate was like carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks. The longer someone carries it, the more exhausted they become. Letting go doesn't change yesterday, but it makes tomorrow easier to walk toward. Years passed. Grace graduated from high school with honors. During graduation, she delivered a speech about courage. She didn't speak about famous athletes or celebrities. She spoke about her father. She described the morning he lost everything and still chose compassion over revenge, integrity over pride, and forgiveness over anger. The audience stood together in applause while Michael quietly wiped tears from his eyes. At that moment, he realized success had never been measured by promotions, offices, or company ownership. Success was raising a daughter who understood the true meaning of character. Before this story comes to its conclusion, we have one heartfelt request. Please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness always wins," if you believe compassion is stronger than power. We'd love to know that this message reached your heart. Looking back, Michael often remembered the lonely walk through the parking lot with a cardboard box in his hands. At the time, it felt like the worst day of his life. But sometimes, the moment that seems like an ending is actually the beginning of something far greater. Losing a position revealed his true purpose. Being betrayed exposed who truly deserved his trust. And one quiet phone call that sounded like revenge ultimately became the first step toward justice, healing, and a better future for hundreds of families. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of someone who never gave up, or inspired you to choose kindness even when life feels unfair, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories that prove even in the darkest moments, hope, integrity, and love can still change lives forever.